I always really like talking to Paul. Whenever I speak with him, I always get some bits of information that you kind of don't see through his videos. And in this conversation, it's such a great eye opener in some aspects of how he works. And it's such a great conversation. So I really hope you enjoy it just as much as we did recording it. Here's the conversation. Well, this is the whole point with technology, I think, to use it the best way you can, right? But not overdo it. This is the whole point. And I think, being in tech for so long, I've seen so many people, what I would say, make mistakes, right? Because you come into this as well when working with your clients, saying, you mentioned it in the group call once about how do you do like a little thing that but they just don't know.
Stuff that you think is really simple. We forget that the stuff that we think is really simple, other people find really impressive. I had an example today. I spoke to a woman. She was getting some help with Asana. She's brand new to Asana. And she said, I was creating some tasks and I created some subtasks, which was amazing. I was like, really? That's the thing that impressed you, subtasks?
It's interesting how, the thing is, you know what you know and you don't know what you don't know. It's such a stupid, simple, cliched saying, but I always say, and I've said this so many times, no question is a stupid question. But there's a cravat to that, unless you ask me 3 times. Then I'm calling you out. But no question is a stupid question because you don't know. You don't know how to be a surgeon. You don't know how to fly a helicopter. You don't know these things. You just don't. So you have to ask. So obviously it's in a different realm to, from flying a helicopter to subtasks. I get it. But the essence is the same. You're still asking a question.
And that's why we have jobs, right? Like it's funny. I sometimes catch myself thinking like, how do you not know this? Or I get frustrated. Like, why don't you know this? Or why am I answering these simple questions? And I'm like, hang on, Paul, this is what you're being paid to do. People are paying you to teach them how to use technology. Like that's why you have a job. Don't complain. If everyone was as confident or as competent with you with tools and could pick things up quickly, you'd have a normal job somewhere, or be doing something else. Yeah,
absolutely. It's funny because my best friend Floortje, she's constantly banging on about the same thing. It's like, stop complaining, because if people, and in fact, people actually do say that on Twitter at me. It's like, wait, if everyone knew everything, you wouldn't be in work, basically, which is true. That's what consultants do. We go in and fix people's problems. So it's kind of good that people don't know those questions, those answers to the questions. But how do you? Because I've known you for a long time now, even before we knew each other.
It's been a few years, yeah.
It's been a few years, but I've been following you because I got into this whole Asana and pipe drive thing. So I watched your videos and then got your course and then went into your master's thing. So I've kind of followed you from the beginning almost. And it's interesting how our paths are kind of the same in a way, and what we do. However, the way I do things is I think I oversimplify things sometimes, whereas you don't. You're kind of totally focused in a different way to what I am. Not that they're opposed necessarily.
Not that there's a better or worse. It's just we each have different preferences, and it's what makes people interesting is that we're all unique. And I think, an example I thought about recently is I think you'd said something on Twitter about you hate automation. And I was like, what? I love automation. Are you kidding? Like automation is so good if it helps me to save time and scale and automate stuff that I don't want to do. Like, and it's just one of those examples. Like you're sort of the opinion, well, if I can simplify something enough where I don't need the automation, and I agree, but I guess I'm attacking it from the point of view as well. Yeah, so obviously, if you can eliminate a step or simplify it where you don't need it, that is preferable. And I like that mindset, because you're like the person I often have in the back of my head when I'm working on something or setting something up. I think, what would Kay do? But yeah, obviously, sometimes that is unavoidable, so you have to automate. Yeah.
This is the thing. I do not like automation for specific reasons. Automation is needed. I'm not a kind of automation out, that's it, I'm never going to use it. And automation means different things to different people, I think. And there are different types of automation. So I use like a buffer type program. That is automation. That's not, it's not just an app. It's automation in the sense that you're putting something in and you're automating it to go to 2 or 3 or multiple different platforms. That is automation. So I'm not opposed to that kind of automation. What I'm opposed to with automation, and a thing that bothers me, is that it's, depending on what you're trying to do, it's not human, right? So I have an email list. Of course, there's automation involved. But the way I use it isn't right. I know that. I've got a long way to go with that. But I find a lot of people use automation specifically in email, and it's not, they've lost the human element.
I agree.
Of the connection, of the sales, of the whatever it is that they're trying to do. And I was speaking about this yesterday in my group, where I've stopped using Calendly because of that that loss of human connection. And I thought, well, how can I simplify this? What's the reason that I'm stopping to do this? And the reason was the human connection, but also because of what I do with tech minimalism, people always book a call, kick the tires, but they're not in it to hire you. They're in it to go, well, what's this about? Like, Jesus Christ, I've got loads of videos going. Don't waste my time. But again, the other issue with that kind of automation is that they're injecting themselves into my calendar. And as you know, I have nothing in my calendar. I try not to I don't do back to back. I do 5 tasks a day. I do 1 client a day if I need to, and that's it. So when my mind is, okay, what shall I do today? I don't want to wake up to, oh shit, I've got to do this because I didn't think about that, So that part of automation I don't like, but I understand automation is there for good.
There's a balancing act. Sometimes people come to me, they're looking for help with Pipedrive, and they say, I hear it quite a lot. They say, I want to automate my entire sales process. And I'm like, oh, okay. What do you mean by that? Like, what do you mean exactly? And I have to kind of rein people in and really challenge them, because people are like, well, when we move them through stages, we want emails to go out, blah, blah, blah. And I often find myself saying the same thing, which is, I do think automation is good at the right times. And, if you've, let's say, consulting workflow, somebody books a call, they chat with me, I'm not going to automate the follow-up there, because we've just had a human interaction, like you just said. I'm going to follow up with a personal email. Where I can reference what we talked about and say, hey, Kay, this is what we talked about. This is what I think we should do next. If you automate that, number one, you're just not going to be as effective at selling and closing a deal because it's automated. You're much far better off taking the extra few minutes to write something meaningful. And I think that's, I guess, if we're talking about sales, that's the time where you definitely do not want to be automating, is while you're following up, you're pitching. I think automation comes in. What I do, for example, is maybe I followed up with a personal follow-up. Even I've tried calling them a number of times and they're ghosting me, they're going cold. Then I'll say, right, this is my final follow-up. I'll leave you on my newsletter list. So then my newsletter kicks in. They're going to get every couple of weeks, a new video about Pipedrive comes out. So I'm kind of keeping them in the loop. Hey, here's a new video. And then inevitably, a lot of people come back and say, hey, Paul, reaching back out, I've been getting your emails. Thanks, they're really helpful. I'm ready to carry on with that project. And so I think, and for me, I found that's a balance that works quite well. So you're not totally sacrificing all that human interaction and personalization, but you are using automation strategically to, in the right way, to keep those cold leads kind of warm and until they are ready to take that next step. Yeah.
I think that's a great way of doing it. And you kind of hit the nail on the head, because a lot of people do use automation the wrong way. And I think that's where the thing with me, I hate automation. There is another part of automation I don't like, and I'll come to that. But again, so many people sell automation as if it's like this. You just did a post about passive income, and it's not passive because there's so much work involved. Setting up these automations, setting up these newsletters, I mean, there's a lot. It's not passive.
Learning as well. Just getting through the learning curve about even having the skills to do it.
Yeah, it's a lot of work, and people don't realize that. And I didn't realize that at the beginning as well. To be honest, when I started working, it was like, oh, I want to do passive stuff. And then when I tried it, it was like, wait, this isn't simple enough. I'm not going to do this. So there's so much work people don't realize. But a lot of people, consultants, try to sell this automation thing as it's this Valhalla of, and it's not, because, and it kind of brings me on to the part of the automation I really don't like. And the whole simplicity thing is that if something breaks in the chain, depending on what the automation is, you've got to try to figure out what it is, and it's a pain in the butt sometimes. And you've done this thousands of times with your clients, and they're like, "Why isn't this what?" I mean, I'm sure of it because I get that with different things. So,
and it's a tricky one because a lot of, obviously you hope that you've done a good job and it doesn't break for a reason that you are the cause of, like the automation. Maybe you didn't think of a certain, if the data comes in like this, we didn't think about how to handle it. And sometimes there is a bit of fine tuning to make it more reliable. But sometimes, like I had one the other day, Pipedrive server was down. A client, he forwarded me the error email from Zapier and said, "Hey, Paul, there's this error. Can you take a look?" And it says in the email, this was caused because the Pipedrive server was temporarily unavailable. And I confirmed it, and I went and had a look. But that was just something that's just like outside of my control. There was nothing wrong. Everything would have worked as planned had Pipedrive server been working.
Right.
But inevitably you have to troubleshoot some of these things, and can be a time suck.
I mean, sometimes APIs change and they don't tell you. Sometimes. That's a pain. I don't want to. Yeah. I mean, this whole thing about using social media, you're the product, etc. I kind of, it's not the same, but it's kind of, to me in my mind, it's kind of the same in the sense that you're tied to an API, you're tied to a network, you're tied to someone's server going down, you're tied. So when that link, one of those links breaks, then it doesn't sit well with me. Hence this overall notion for me as, automation sucks. It doesn't suck. Of course it works and it's good, and there's certain automations that work. So for instance, if I'm sending out something, I don't use Buffer, I use Publer, but I just use the word Buffer. If I'm using Buffer and I'm sending it out and Buffer doesn't work, I can go to individual networks and just post the thing that I wanted to do. Very simple, easy. But if you've got a Zapier going on, or what's the other one called? Insta something? Integromat. So if you have one of these things and it goes down, your client is going to call up, like you've just mentioned, and you've got all this headache. To me, that's not simplicity. That's more headache than anything. So I don't know how this has happened, but my business is in such a bubble on its own where I don't really worry about external influence so much, and it's happened accidentally in a way, and I love it. So I don't have to worry about those kind of things, and I choose not to work with certain type of clients as well. It's going back to this no thing.
Yeah, I think a good way to summarize it is like, and this is something as you're talking, I'm thinking in my head, this is something I've done in other areas of my life, but I think I've always tried to be as self-sufficient as I can.
Right.
That's why I wanted to work for myself in the first place. I was like, I don't want a job. I don't want to have a boss and have someone tell me how much I should get paid. Like, I want to be my own boss and set my own hours and make as much as I want or as little as I want, and just have the freedom to make my own decisions and work where I want and travel if I want, and just be self-sufficient and not tied to somebody else. That was kind of even why I started my business. But I've kind of carried that through to different decisions that I've made. Like, my master Asana and Pipedrive programs that I created about a year ago now, I created an online course element to those. And I looked at a few of the online course platforms like Teachable and a few others, but I was
Yeah.
like, no, I want to keep it on my website. Again, I don't want to be beholden to another company, because I'm already using, inevitably you have to use a few bits of software to run your business. So if I can keep this under my umbrella,
Right.
that's always preferable to me. And I think, that self-sufficiency is something that I've tried to steer towards when possible. Yeah.
It's funny. I tweeted something about this, and I'm sure you saw it. Own your audience, and
Yep.
it's such a big thing. People don't realize this. You're using all these platforms. You're giving away all your information, all your content, all your SEO juice to these companies who really don't give a shit about you. To be honest, they're there to make money and keep eyes on that. So I just started my community. That's a topic for another discussion. But I was trying to figure out how I can keep it under my own umbrella. And so I was really looking for the right simple tool and stuff. And I came across Circle, which is really nice because you can add your own domain and stuff, and it's working out quite well. If I leave Circle, the domain matters. So I can point everyone to the right place.
Right. Yeah.
So those little things really matter, because owning your audience is such a huge thing. You have a massive email list, and that's owning your audience, because I don't see you posting so much on Twitter or LinkedIn or social media necessarily. No, barely. And that's because you own your audience. And I think people listening in got to understand you have to own your audience, because if you don't, your hands are tied, because if they kick you out, for instance. I mean, did you know this thing about, I mean, we spoke about this before, and I think I mentioned it in one of your group calls about YouTube changing their TOS. And the TOS basically says, if we think your channel isn't financially viable, we can cancel your account.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
That's crazy. So all these people.
I saw a tweet, somebody tweeting the other day. He was saying his personal Google account was shut down.
Yes.
And he couldn't. He tried to talk to somebody at Google to figure out why. He just wanted a reason. What have I done? What terms of service have I breached? And they couldn't say anything. So we don't support personal Google accounts. You need to post on the forum. And I don't know how that was resolved, or whether it was resolved, to be honest.
I don't think it was.
It's like, what, you can just have your Google account shut down?
Yeah,
without a reason.
Well, this is another problem I have with big tech, and again, own your audience is the same thing as own your data. I mean, if you don't have control of your data, because everything's in the cloud and so on.
And this is why, when I was kind of in the rabbit hole learning about starting an online business, probably back in 2014, listening to podcasts and reading blogs about building audiences, listening to kind of the Pat Flynn's and Fizzle podcasts, things like that. The common sort of theme that kept coming up was, the importance of a newsletter list. And a lot of people saying, I should have started my newsletter list earlier, for exactly that reason. You can be a Facebook influencer or an Instagram influencer, but you don't own the audience. Whereas with an email list, I've done it. I started on MailChimp. MailChimp, I decided wasn't right for me after a few years, and I'm now on ConvertKit, and I could just take that list and take it with me. It doesn't matter what tool I use. And so, in hindsight, I'm glad I put the time and the energy into the newsletter list early on, because it's worked out well for me. And as you mentioned, I don't really do much social. It doesn't really suit the type of clients or type of audience I'm looking for anyway. Like, if I'm talking about productivity, how many people are trying to be productive are on Facebook, or even, especially my clients aren't searching for help with Asana or Pipedrive on Facebook. Maybe there's an argument to be made about doing more on LinkedIn, but what I'm doing at the moment works for me, and it's enough. So
yeah, well, again, it goes back to how much is enough. You don't want to go crazy with the whole loads of work thing. This discussion came up yesterday about, I only work with 3 clients at a time. I don't want to do any more than that. So how much is enough? That to me is enough, right? But the only audience thing is such a huge thing. And your tech stack's quite on point as well. It's quite minimal in a sense, because you did the Miro thing, which I saw, which I looked at, and I was like, wait, this isn't that dissimilar to mine. Slightly different tools, but
it's not a huge amount. I mean, to rattle off the things that I use, I mean, firstly, with all my productivity tools, I stick to a lot of the just default Apple stuff. Like I use Apple Mail, Apple Calendar,
Yeah.
Apple Notes. I have tried a lot of the third-party clients for mail and notes. I was on Evernote for years. I actually really like the simplicity and the reliability of Apple products, especially with mail clients. Mail clients can be really touch and go with search and sending messages. So I just find the Apple ecosystem really rock solid, and that being in the Apple ecosystem a lot with my, having the phone, the Mac, it works really well. And then for project management, Asana, my CRM, Pipedrive, email list, ConvertKit, and then Zapier is kind of the glue that holds all of it together. So it's not a lot really. I'd call that, those are the main building blocks, of my business. Obviously, there's some stuff in the background and Calendly and stuff, but the big pillars of my business are run on those tools. Yeah,
you don't need that many tools, and this is what I'm trying to kind of hammer into everybody. Everyone sees all these tools. My job is to go and find those tools. Don't do as I do as I say. So I use a bunch of tools, not because I want to, it's because I'm interested in tools, and that's my job, to find the right tools for the right client. So people say, well, you use this, and you just said you use that. And I use these tools because I need to test them out and check them out for you. So I'm doing the job so you don't have to waste your time, right? And I love doing that stuff because that's why I do what I do. But like you said, the Apple stuff just works. It really does just work. The Notes app, I've just found an app called Craft, and I use Basecamp, but I'm actually going to stop using Basecamp because of Craft. Because the thing that I was using Basecamp for, I can do in Craft.
Okay.
Right? And so
nothing to do with the recent controversy at Basecamp.
No, we'll get into that. We'll get into that. We'll definitely get into that because I have a lot to say about that one. But no, I use Hey email. I love it. I really do like it. But there's an issue with Hey that I don't like. Again, nothing to do with the whole Basecamp debacle. I'm thinking of moving back to Apple Mail because, as you said, it just works. Yeah, but again, it's
okay. Can we dig into that now? So why? Because you probably saw I posted about it fairly recently as well, as considering switching, and this is what I'm looking at. Hey, and how I went about the decision. I decided to stick with Apple Mail, and I kind of talked about my thought process, but. Because I do know you're a big fan of Hey, so why are you thinking of switching back?
Okay, I'm a huge fan of Hey, right? I really am a huge fan of Hey, but there are certain things. There's certain things because of the simplicity I don't like, and I prefer the simplicity of Apple Mail over it. But what I don't like, what I said in a tweet recently is you marry the person you hate the least. Right? You dislike the least, not hate, dislike the least. And you use the software that you dislike the least. They're the same thing, right, to me. So it doesn't mean that I dislike Hey or dislike Apple. I just think Hey is a bit too closed in. I have to work the way they work. And that it wasn't a problem necessarily. I do love using it. So I'm really torn apart as to me wanting to go back to Apple Mail because there are certain features that I am going to miss. Absolutely. Yeah. So I'm really thinking long and hard whether I should do the switch. Okay. But if I did do the switch, it would be Apple Mail. It wouldn't be anywhere else. Yeah. Now, the thing with Hey is that it's a service. It's not a skin for email, right? It's two things in one. There's a skin and there's a service. So what's the backbone of, if I move over to Apple Mail, what's the backbone you're going to use? Is it going to be your own domain, your own server, where your domain is hosted, et cetera, et cetera? That I would never do again. Never, ever. Yeah.
What were you on before Hey? Were you G Suite?
Oh God. I was on G Suite. Then I moved over to Fastmail. And then I went to Hey. Now I still have Fastmail because of my archive email. That will never change. That's my backbone, right? So when it comes to my service, the service is Fastmail because I really like it. It's solid. It works. It has a great feature set. But again, that's just the backbone. I wouldn't be using the skin of Fastmail.
No.
So the
Yeah.
skin of Fastmail, or the skin for the email, would be Apple Mail. It wouldn't be anything
Mail,
else.
yeah.
I've tried,
Yeah.
oh Jesus, Mail Pilot. They keep
Spark,
changing. Spark,
Cloud Magic.
they're all of them, right? And they all
Yeah.
have nice features. On Mail is another one, but they're just complicating things. And I think
Yeah,
people complicate email. We had this discussion with somebody in your group this week about
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
stop complicating it. It's email.
Yeah.
Communicate, forget it.
Yeah. With Hey, I was really interested when it came out. I mean, first of all, I thought it was really cool that a company went back to the drawing board with email. They sort of said, okay, Google and Microsoft and Apple, they've had their way of doing email for years. If we were starting email again in 2021 with the challenges that we have now, what would make email great? So I just really like the fact that somebody was willing to take on that challenge. And I looked at the demo video, and there were some really interesting features. It was a completely new way of managing email, like with the screening list.
Screener.
You've got your
great,
inbox.
great feature.
Really interesting. Yeah, because obviously, with spam now. And that inspired me. I started blocking people more. So if I can't screen people before they come through. So sometimes I get cold outreach emails. I just block them now. And that was actually something I started doing since watching the Hey demo. I was like, there's this feature in Apple Mail. I haven't been using it. I'm just going to block people. So if they follow up again, it's just going to get deleted instantly.
Yeah.
So I kind of picked that up. So there's a few features that I was really interested by. One of the big things that I couldn't get past, though, was that you can't move across your archive. I think you had that concern when you originally signed up as well.
Yes.
And I know that they're saying, well, it's a fresh start. Okay, that's nice. But in the real world, I have to refer back to emails a lot. And not just in the short term, but sometimes it's like, I need to find an email maybe from 6 or 12 months ago. So I'm going to have to still use Apple Mail.
Yes.
And so now I would have to use two tools. And if I'm putting on my simplicity hat, that's not really simple. So that was a big reason I couldn't make the switch. And the other reason as well is that actually the way I do email works really well. If I was somebody, I'm not drowning in email. I do not have hundreds or thousands of unread email.
Same.
If you are someone that really struggles, maybe something like Hey would be more useful. Or that's why I sometimes recommend SaneBox. I think SaneBox is a useful tool for somebody that's drowning in email. I don't use it. I don't need it. I don't receive hundreds of emails.
No.
I get 20 emails. When I wake up tomorrow morning, I'll probably have about 20 emails in my inbox. It's really manageable. So there are some good services out there, but I just kind of concluded that, Hey, I didn't need it.
The feature set that I like is the screener. And I mean, the three main features is the screener, the paper trail, and the feed, believe it or not. And it's, yes, you can duplicate those in a way in Apple Mail, but you have to kind of hack it. And I've never been a fan of hacking things to try to figure things out. Like when I was using Apple Mail, I never had any folders. It was literally archive and inbox, and that was it. That's the best way to do it. And people will say, well, how do you find something? Like, well, search for it.
Search for it.
And the follow-up question, well, how do you know what to search for? I'm like, you didn't ask me that question, did you? Like, if you lose your keys, you're not going to say, what am I looking for? You're saying, I'm looking for keys. So you type in keys, right? So anyway. But they have some really, honestly, that comes up. They have some really, really cool features. Looking at it now, it's hard to go away from it because of that screener. I don't get hundreds of emails, but the emails that I don't want to see, I don't want to see. And this really does work. And that's the beauty of it. So if I was to move back, and I am thinking about it, it will only be Apple Mail, because in this past two weeks, and we're going to get onto that now, the reason why I started thinking about it is the whole notion of, oh shit, my email is on a platform. What if that platform? That's the only reason I was thinking about, because of what's going on.
So can you get your email out?
Yeah, you can export it. That's not a problem.
Right.
So it wasn't oh shit, I got to do it now. It's kind of, can I move my data out? If I do, what tool would I use? So I looked at Spark again. And there's one thing in Spark I hate, actually. is the sidebar. I don't want to see the sidebar, the folder list. And I've contacted them for over a year. Can you please give us the option to hide it? And they won't. And that's the only reason I don't use Spark, because I think Spark is probably a really good one after Mail, after Apple Mail. Then there is...
So with Apple Mail, you just have your inbox, the thread, the list of messages, and then the message. So you don't have the sidebar. Okay, I'm going to try that.
I don't use the sidebar. Don't use the sidebar at all.
I was thinking about it. I use shortcuts to navigate. It's I think it's what, Command 1 to go to the inbox.
Command 1, 2, 3, yeah.
Super easy.
It depends on where you put them as to what the commands do.
Yeah.
So yeah, I just use the commands. So it's quite easy. Now, let's get onto this whole Basecamp thing, because I really want to talk about this. So I personally don't think Basecamp is doing anything wrong. The way they did it is wrong, but I don't think they're doing anything wrong. And the way I said it on Twitter was, if you're coming into my house and I'm asking you to take off your shoes and you say why, you ain't coming into my house. It's my house. It's my business. I run my business the way I want to run it. And if my business changes into the way that you were used to it, then by all means, you're welcome to leave. That's the basics, the basis of me thinking Basecamp is right. Okay. Now, we don't know the whole story, and we'll never know the whole story. I don't think we will ever. Now, Casey blah blah wrote in the Verge.
Casey Newton, yeah.
Newton,
he had some
right?
really good reporting on it, yeah.
Yeah, he did, but from I don't hate journalists, but I hate some journalists, and I hate sometimes the way they report things without knowing the whole story. Now, they know one side of the story. They don't know the other side of the story. So they will report that one side. The problem with that is now everyone's got that one side in their head. And that's a problem I have with that kind of reporting. So I'm not saying he's wrong. I'm just saying wait until you hear the full story.
Yeah.
But what they have done, what Basecamp have done and said, listen, this list, stupid, let's get rid of it. Now we're changing it. We don't want to talk about this, that, and the other in the office or on office platforms. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. They're not saying you can't talk about it. They're just saying, listen, we're here for work.
Yeah.
I mean, if you had, you hire external people, right? And if they started talking, forget politics and forget any of that. If they started talking about, my feet smell and blah, blah, blah in your private Slack, you're like, dude, you're here to work. Come on. Right? And I think I equate it to that.
I agree. I mean, when I asked you about it on Slack last week, and I had a conversation with a friend of mine who's a Hey customer and a Basecamp follower. He's read all the DHH, Jason Fried books over the years. I would call him like a fan of the company, or he was a fan of the company. We had a conversation yesterday, which is we both arrived at a similar conclusion, which is that the policy itself, I see the logic to it. Like, I even would have done it differently and said, look, maybe we're not going to ban political discussion on the work platform, but let's just be a bit more respectful, a bit more mindful. I just think the way they went about it could have been a lot better. Yeah. I think the intent was right, which is let's keep Basecamp, our project management tool where we work, let's keep it focused on work. Maybe there might be some political aspects to that sometimes, but let's just try and keep it focused. So I think, no, I agree. I don't disagree with the logic. I think it wasn't executed well. They posted the new policy publicly before even sharing it with their employees, which I don't think is fair. And overall, I feel a bit disappointed, and I feel like it's very hypocritical of DHH and Jason, who have spent years writing books, telling everyone how to run their companies, how to have the best corporate culture, how to reward your employees. And it turns out they've got all this dirty laundry. They value their customers, but they actually keep a list of funny customer names. So it just feels really hypocritical that they've been telling everyone how to operate their businesses for years, and all this has been going on in the background.
I don't disagree with that at all. I don't think they should have had those names, even though I have a funny name and I don't care to be on that list, but that's a personal thing. I actually wrote about
Do you think
why
do
I'm
you think
called
you're on the
Cam.
list?
I doubt it. It's not that funny, but it's. Did you read? I wrote a blog post yesterday about why I'm called Kane.
I
You
haven't read
saw
it, but
that?
I did see the title.
Right.
Yeah.
So I have no problems with people saying, you can call me Oi. I'm not tied to my
Yeah.
name, right? Your name isn't. Anyway, that's something else. But I don't agree. I don't disagree with what you said. I think the way they went about it was absolutely wrong. But I don't agree with everyone saying I'm leaving because, I'm leaving because of the policy changes. Something, okay, we're changing our policy. And just because you've written books about the way you work, and then you've changed the way you work now and saying new policy, I don't see a problem with that. It's like, well, people grow, businesses grow, and they're changing. I do have a problem with them posting it out on public,
Yeah.
but it's been going on for a while, from what
The
I
impression I
understand.
get as well with people leaving, I think this is the straw that broke the camel's back. It sounds like some employees there's some underlying frustration, and this was the final straw. Some
Yeah.
employees mentioned, in Casey's reporting, after the list came out, and it had been a few years, but some people tried to set up an internal group to talk more about diversity and some of these issues in the workplace, and Jason and David kind of shut it down. They're like, no, we're not doing that. And a few people saying they felt like they're running the company just for the fun of it, and they don't. If your agenda doesn't fit with that, then they're going to kind of get rid of you, or they don't care. So I think you're right. We're only getting one side of the story, but my impression is that there is some deeper unhappiness there, and this was just the final straw.
That
for a lot of people.
could well be. Yeah, I mean, it does sound. There's definitely something.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, there's definitely something else going on that we don't know, and I'm reserving judgment until I hear everything. I've posted on Twitter about entitlement, people leaving due to entitlement now, and that's not me just saying because it's Basecamp and I like them or whatever, but it's about the people leaving. If you actually read their Twitter for the past 2 or 3 years, and the things that they've said screams entitlement for them leaving. And it's hard to explain. I'm from the older generation, right? So the way I think of things is different to, these 30-year-olds, 20-year-olds and whatever. And I think, not all, but I think a handful of them screams entitlement. Just does. Not because of what I've seen now and what's happened now. It's because of I followed these people. And when I read their Twitter, I'm like, really? Nothing to do with this Basecamp issue. This is way before even this came out. They're posting stuff and I'm like, you really think like that? Are you kidding me? And then when this comes out and everyone's shitting on Basecamp, I'm like, have you read their stuff in the past? Dude, no. This doesn't compute. There's something else going on. And that's why I'm saying I'm reserving judgment. I'm not saying they're right, but I am saying the right part is it's their business and they can do whatever they want, rightly or wrongly. Rightly or wrongly. I don't have a problem with that. So even I was like, can I take my data out? Right? You have to look at, self-preservation. You've got to look after your own data, your own clients, your own. So
I mean, we've just been talking about Hey before, and I bet they had some big plans for this product. I mean, how old? It's less than 6 months old? I don't know. It's a pretty new product.
It's a year, almost a year.
Oh, really? Nearly a year. So I know they've got plans for things they want to do with Hey, and man, that's all down the toilet now. I mean, they're
iOS team
kind of
gone.
Busy for next year. Their iOS team's gone.
Yeah.
And how do they even hire new people now with this on this burden on their shoulders? Who are they going to attract?
Well, people who stayed there, they're going to attract those kind of people. So I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the people that are there. It's a challenge, but it's still There's no
I'm
way
sure
I
they'll
would
come
get a
through it.
job
I
there.
don't question. I don't question. Like the company will be fine, you know. And I'm sure a lot of their customers, Basecamp and Hey customers, probably have no idea what's happened.
No.
So I'm sure they'll come through it. But yeah, this next year or next half a year is
It's
going to be
I
pretty
think it's
challenging for
just
them. Yeah.
I think it's just the fact that it's been aired out in public. That's
Yeah.
the divisive thing that's going on with everybody. You know, some people
Yeah.
are like totally on one side and other side, and some people can actually talk about it like an adult. Whereas you see stuff on Twitter, and you're like, "Are you you serious?" And again, it's the younger generation. Got to be honest. There's some older people as well. There's one
Yeah.
guy, and I'm never going to use Basecamp products. And blah, blah. You don't know the whole fucking story. Just, you know.
I mean, on the flip side, you know, okay, everyone's quick to bash on Basecamp for what they've done and switch away from their products, but look at what Facebook's done. Look at what the kind of stuff that Google does. Like, are you deleting Facebook? Are you deleting Instagram? Do you still use WhatsApp? You know,
I don't use any of those for
well, I know
have
you
you
don't, but you know these
yeah,
people.
no, I understand. Did you see the Signal blog post that did you see this?
Which
You've
one?
got to see this. So Signal put out a blog post a couple of days ago saying we bought some Facebook ads.
Oh no, that one. Yes, sorry. Yeah. I did see.
I
That
mean,
was
it's
brilliant. Yeah.
oh wow, they're doing some really cool stuff.
They were shut
Signal.
down though, weren't they? Facebook.
They were
claiming
shut
that.
down because it's like, well, you know, we don't want you to tell everyone how we do it, because that's what
Yeah.
they were trying to do. So, as you say, if people are quick enough to shut down a company that they kind of use,
Yeah.
but they're still using those kind of companies like Facebook and so on,
Yeah.
hypocrisy
It is
is
good.
just,
It is good after this. Call it 10 years of massive technological development with software and social media, and all the issues that's brought with it. I mean, obviously, these products are there's good and bad sides, right? You know, there's no question these products. It's a net good for the world to have social media. We have access to so much information and connectivity now. It's incredible, but it has brought with it a lot of issues, which the world is figuring out. It is nice though to see companies prioritizing privacy and just a good customer experience, and well, privacy. You know, you've got Apple at the forefront of privacy in their products. You've got Signal coming out with encrypted and private messaging. Browsers, is it the Brave browser? You know, privacy now is a legitimate selling point for more and more products. And it's just kind of nice to see like the world is slowly moving in that direction, and more people are going, yeah, I don't need Facebook, and it's just nice
a lot of these, a lot of these new products, not all of them, but some of them are actually coming from these big companies, saying, you know, I don't agree with that, so I'm going to build something privacy focused, which is quite interesting. Vivaldi browser, who just come out with a new. We've got to track back a little bit. Google came out with a new technology to track people without using instead of using cookies. So they're like, hey, we're not going to use cookies. Isn't that nice of us? But then they're bringing out this thing called FLOC, FOLC, I think, and which is going to track you even more than the cookies would. So now browsers are coming out saying we don't want FLOC. So I think Brave has stopped it. Firefox has stopped it. Vivaldi is actually stopped it, but it's also stopping cookies as well. It's sandboxing it. So yeah, like you say, I'm so happy that these companies are coming out to kind of on our side, on the consumer side, because these tech companies have got so freaking big now, so quickly. And I can't stop thinking why that has been, especially with Facebook. Because from what I understand, Facebook was given money by the government at the early stages. And there's lots of it. Yeah. So
I wonder if because we're still in really the early days of the internet. Really, how does like mainstream internet, like people have been on it since the early 2000s. That was when everyone kind of got an email address and social media became a thing. So it's really still so young. And the internet came out as this like under the freemium model, right? How are we going to pay for this thing? Well, we're going to run ads everywhere, and we're going to give everything to users for free. And I think that's partly the answer to your question. How did it grow so quick? Everyone gets everything for free now. Information, tools, software. Who would say no to that? But then now we're realizing, well, actually, I don't feel comfortable giving away access to all this data and information. And so I wonder if, like, I don't know what the time frame with this will be, if it's 10, 20, 30, 40 years. But with something like with the emergence of cryptocurrency coming along, I wonder if that will support the change in the economics of the internet. So like, could we have an internet 20 years from now that's less ad-based and more streaming-based? So you might have a browser that is loaded up with Bitcoin, and as you click around and read the news or go onto any site, you're going to pay fractions of a cent to browse the internet. And you're not going to care because you're going to get off and you're going to have paid, I don't know, cents to read an article or watch a video. And cryptocurrency supports that because now microtransactions are possible. And so we might be able to move away from an internet, and the market will vote for this. The market gets to decide. Yeah. And Facebook may be forced into a position where they lose customers because everyone starts going, well, I'm going to start streaming my content, and I don't want to go on a platform that sells my data and where I see ads everywhere. And I think people will vote with their wallets.
Already
and I wonder
started.
If that could be,
It's already started. Company called Libry, LBRY. I've known about them for a couple of years now. I've got some of my content on there, but again, I wanted to put it on my website. But it's like a YouTube. So they rebranded to Odyssey. Odyssey being the public face of Libry being the back end of it and the protocol. So whenever you watch a video, the content creator gets paid. So there's no ads. The quality of it is amazing. You can even live stream. They just released live streaming. And the SEC is trying to stop them. And the funny thing is, the people lobbying the SEC are Google,
Facebook,
YouTube.
Yeah. Why? The SEC is only trying to stop it because of these lobbyists?
They're saying that, well, the reason is because they give away library coins, and the SEC says it's against some sort of weird rule that they have, which actually it isn't. But they're being lobbied by these big tech companies for the SEC to do something, so they're just coming up with stupid shit.
Yeah.
And if it goes through, because if you read the actual complaint, the SEC, if it goes through, it actually stops all other cryptos. And that's why big companies, crypto companies, are now on the side of Libry, and they've got just as much money as these big tech companies. So there's this big thing going on that no one really knows about. It's quite interesting.
I had no idea. Yeah.
So just check out odyssey.com or LBRY, which is Libry, which is the protocol. And again, you can live stream on it. You can get paid on it. People are getting paid loads of freaking money. And it's like Bitcoin, so the prices are going up.
Yeah.
So I've got some library coins in there because I uploaded stuff and been watching stuff, and I get coins. Like, I don't know how it works, but I got coins, Yeah,
it's simple economics. Like, people just getting paid for what they've produced, It's like, not this freemium model and there's this you are the product kind of thing happening in the background. Yeah.
I think, again, the free thing, I mean, you put out a lot of free content. And the reason I do also as well, and the reason we do it is advertising. It purely is, right, in a way. Of course, you're there to help people because your videos do give out loads of information. Mine are slightly different, but we give out all this free information to help people. But it is also advertising for people to understand what we do, and maybe one day you'll hire us, right? The problem,
exactly.
That's the way it is, and I don't think there's anything wrong with that. The problem I find is that some platforms put ads on that, right? And the problem I have with YouTube, and this isn't taking anything away from you or your content, because you put your stuff on YouTube and you get ad revenue from it, and there are ads on it. The problem I find is that a lot of other type of content, they make content so they get loads more ads. So people watch clickbait stuff. So people watch it and they make money, right? So then who are you making content for? Are you making content because you want to make money, or are you making
Or for an
content?
algorithm. Yeah.
Right, or for the algorithm? And that's where the internet has gone wrong.
Yeah.
Because these big companies, because they make so much money, they don't mind giving away a few for people to buy a car and whatever. And
Yeah.
that's the problem with the internet right now. It's the advertising that's a problem, I feel.
Yeah.
I use
Something
ad block everywhere because I don't want to.
Yeah. Something I had in the back of my head from years ago. Do you remember Matt Cutts from Google? Did you ever watch any of his videos?
I recognize the name, but I don't remember ever watching.
Matt Cutts was I think he's like a Google, I don't think he's still there, but he's like a Google engineer on the SEO organic side,
Right.
or was in the early days, and he put out videos explaining these are the SEO updates that we've had, and this is how to deal with them, and that kind of thing. And he just said something really simple once, which is like, when you're producing content, whether it's a blog post on your website or a video, just make it good for a human being. Like, don't worry too much about the algorithm. This is kind of my interpretation of what he was saying is like, don't worry too much about the algorithm. If you make good content for humans that people find engaging, that's useful and valuable, the algorithm will reward you. You'll get better rankings and more eyeballs on your stuff. So just produce good content. And I was like, that sounds good. That sounds like a good philosophy. Like, rather than trying to understand how Google ranks stuff and optimize for keywords and do all this research and what's the optimum video length, I don't care about any of that. I just think about, well, I want to make a video about this new feature in Asana.
Yeah.
I don't care if YouTube prefers a longer video because that keeps people on more and it's more opportunities to sell ads. If I can communicate my message in 5 minutes, that's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to produce good content that the viewer on the other end finds useful. And that's what I just heard that years ago, and it's something I've tried to stick with over the years. Yeah.
Well, that's the thing. When I watch your videos, it's not clickbaity. It's like, here's some information. And by the way, we spoke about this yesterday in your Slack about buymecoffee.com. Should we ask for, as consultants, does it devalue your brand, your worth if you ask for donations? Now, yes, it can, but it's not too dissimilar to what you're doing with YouTube ads. They're not paying, but you're getting some money for the work that you put out there. And you're not doing it for the money. If it covers some things, fantastic. And that's the whole point of donations.
Kind of why
Right. So I don't see a problem with that. What I do see a problem with is a lot of YouTubers, as you say, clickbait stuff. I'll make it just over 10 minutes. You saw, back in, a couple of years ago, everything was 10 minutes and 3 seconds because it was over that 10-minute mark. And there were even that was it.
I don't even know what. Yeah, this is how little I know. I was like, why is that important? Is that because that's when you get a second ad, or what? Yeah,
you get more in video ads or whatever it was. And there was loads of people pushing this. There's a big guy called Roberto Blake that was pushing it back then. He's changed his tack now because now he has the followers. He doesn't have to. Yeah. So a lot of these gurus that talk about YouTube and how to game the algorithm, they're all saying, make it 10 minutes, 3 seconds. And there were even videos that were like 6 minutes long, but there was black for the rest of the 4 minutes just to get over the, yeah. And you're telling me that's not gaming the system?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So
I just can't be bothered as well. Like, all the work that goes into trying to understand these algorithms. And look, what works today, they're going to change it in 3 months anyway. It's going to all be different.
But this is going back to but this is going back to what you were saying, what I was saying about owning your audience, and you saying get an email list early on, because that's the only way you can carry on doing your business if any of these kick you out or whatever. So you have to, going back to what we're saying, owning your audience. And it's a huge thing. Definitely own your audience. I think that's the takeaway from this. Simplify, own your audience, and don't automate so much. It's been a great chat. I always love talking to you because we chat on Slack all the time, but to actually have a conversation like this is always great when we do it. We've done it a few times now, and I love it.
Yeah, no, I really enjoy our chats, and thank you for inviting me on to the
Absolutely.
conversation. Yeah.
Absolutely. Anytime. Well, have a great day, and we'll have a conversation another time.
Thanks, Kay.
Ciao.